Poke the Bear is brought to you by PrizePicks.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 361, presented by PrizePicks. Go use that promo code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. And are presented by CLNS Media. Make sure to go subscribe to Bruins Rinkside on YouTube. Lots of great content coming up. We got, my God, podcasts all the time. We've got analysis. We've got breakdowns. Maybe those are the same thing, but we got scrums, interviews, all that great stuff. Live streams at times. We got so much coming. Make sure to go subscribe and turn on notifications. It's all free, which is awesome. And if you don't like looking at us and you just want to listen, you just like listening to us, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from. Apple, Spotify, Podbean, wherever it is, no matter how close Connor gets to the camera, wherever it is. And then obviously there's a lot of great stuff at CLNS that isn't Bruins related. Big Patriots person, Patriots Press Pass, big Celtics person, Celtics All Access. Lots of great stuff coming. I'm Evan Marinofski. That's Conor Ryan. Connor, what's up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. It's like we're back in school. Training camp is back. There was a press conference on Wednesday.
We already have a pizza party.
That's right.
We're locked in.
Domino's, which
I'm sweating garlic right now. And thank God this isn't like a 4D podcast. You can just smell the garlic radiating off of me. So
oh boy. I do enjoy that the Bruins do provide pizza for us on long days, as in, first day of camp, trade deadline, all that great stuff. Usually it's a pizza shop down the street. They went with Domino's this time. So I can't tell you.
Good old mom and pop place.
Supporting local business. I can't remember the last time I had Domino's at like 1:00 in the afternoon on Thursday. I don't think that's actually ever happened.
And I was going to say, I think probably the last time I did that, I was probably in college, and I probably was orbiting Jupiter at that point, probably ordering pizza at 1:00 on a Thursday. So can you imagine, Evan, the amount of people who are listening to this podcast who are probably like, wow, camp's finally started. These guys can finally get on topic, and we're just leading off with Domino's. You guys can't get away from us that easily.
Should we maybe? What if there was a Domino's in a Canopy Lake Park?
Oh my God, dude! Let me get on the horn. Let's see if we can work some things out there.
Oh, I would do anything for it. No, we will get on topic. We will. We're starting now. We're gonna be on topic. No more Domino's talk. Day one. We're recording this on Thursday, which is after day one of training camp. They did Group A. They did Group B. We'll start with the lines. Group A lines for the Bruins. Geekie, Lindholm, Arvidsson, Hustendinov, and Abati, centered by Middlestat, and then Steves on the right. Beecher, Minton, Lysell, Merkulov, Farinacci, Lokshmelis, with Harrison rotating. Then on D, they had Lowry, McAvoy, Zadorov, Jokiharju, Callahan, Sweezy, Johansson, and Gallagher, and Swayman, DiPietro, and Hrebeck. I don't think I'm saying that right. And then Group B, whole new group of guys. Where's Pavel Zacha? Well, here he is. Blumel, Zacha, Janot, Acimont, Corrali, Kastelik, Tufte, Patra, Duran, Veal, Brown, and then Bancroft and Schmaltz on the right. Lindholm, Peak on D, Harrison, Soderstrom, Brunet, Aspero, Edward, and then Felix/Warner, and then Annette Corpusalo. I can't pronounce the Z goalie. Zajacek? Am I saying that right?
I think I've heard the pronunciation, but I don't recall it actually on this podcast. So let me get back to you on that one.
I hope I have that right. And then Kavalin. So, as Sturm has mentioned many times, that the lines at the start of camp are not going to be the lines at the start of the season, but you can glean a little bit. Geekie with Lindholm again, I don't think is a surprise. But this one really, I don't want to say surprised me, but Sturm spoke about this on Thursday. Blumel with Zacha. Blumel talked about how didn't he live with Zacha for like a week or two? I was talking to someone else when Blumel was talking, so I didn't hear it, but I saw someone tweet it. That's an interesting one. I wonder if there's some legs there with Blumel and Zacha together.
Yeah, I think you look at, if you want to try to read the tea leaves of some of these lines, and I think you can especially look at the D pairs as something that could have some lasting power, right? Like, it's not a surprise. You've got Zadorov and Jokiharju. You look at like that potential fourth line of Acimont, Corrali, Kastelik. That's one we've talked about before. It could be the case on opening night if guys stay healthy. I don't think there's any surprise. Sturm even mentioned that, if David Pastrnak was out there, which we will talk about David Pastrnak a little bit later on, but most likely that top line to open the air is going to be Geekie, Lindholm, Pastrnak, Arvidsson slots up there. But one thing that Sturm mentioned was as they try to kind of sort through the lineup, try to find where guys fit, all that stuff. And I imagine it's going to be different on Friday and throughout the next couple of days as they try to figure out where guys fit. Sturm mentioned the need to try to find pairs, right? Guys that you can pair up and put in different spots and see if you can build some chemistry. And he alluded to the fact that, Blumel, a guy that I think they see the upside in what that player could be, especially offensively on a team that desperately needs just shooting talent. Putting him with Zacha, a fellow Czech player, has some of the chemistry there. If that's a spot where all of a sudden they can mesh and can build a good rapport, maybe you have something working there. And I think we've talked about like projected lines, and as much as we look at the middle six grouping and it being kind of in a state of flux, I think we've all said that like the second line is going to be some sort of Zacha, Middlestat, Arvidsson's kind of been like the consensus, right? But what if they try to maybe balance it out and instead it is like Middlestat, Arvidsson, and then you kind of figure out who the other guy is. Is it Husnudinov? Is it Steves? Is it someone else like that? And all of a sudden your third line is Blumel, Zacha, and Jeannot, or some sort of that grouping as well. So again, I don't think those lines are having people fired up that we're getting ready for a cup run. But it is like a different group. And again, I think it's at least promising for right now that you're seeing, a guy like Blumel. It seems like he's going to have a pretty good runway here to see if he can stick at the NHL level. And again, like this all could change on Friday, right? You look at, Matt Potter's a guy that we've talked about quite a bit, and he kind of starts with, Riley Tufte, Riley Duran, two guys who I think are going to be key pieces in Providence, but also it's not like Patra's with Arvidsson and Zacha or something like that, right? So I think you're going to see a lot of mixing and matching early on, but I think it is at least promising that it feels like Sturm over the next couple of days is going to try to find that balance in that middle six grouping instead of maybe like putting what we all thought was going to be Zacha, Arvidsson, Middlestat together on a line.
Well, it's interesting. He's kind of alluded to his three strong centers as Lindholm, Middlestat, and Zacha. And there is a world where it's like, are Zacha and Middlestat interchangeable and they're your two middle six centers? And again, Sturm talked a lot about on Thursday about how in the AHL, how hard Blumel was to play against and how hard he had to game plan for him and pre-scout for him. But that the NHL game's different. He's not playing 20 minutes a night. Blumel is not, at least to start, going to be a fixture of this offense. So you got to make more out of less minutes. And I don't hate the idea of if that's the route you're going to take, that's a prominent spot next to Zacha. And if they have chemistry, the two Czech guys, like, I'm for it. I'm for at least exploring it. And that it's an interesting thing that you just brought up of like, do you have your steadfast centers down the middle, especially the way that they're going to play? The way the Bruins are going to play, where everything's going to run through the center as they have for a long time. They're the support guys. They're the ones helping out the D the most in the D zone, or is it going to be steady down the middle? And then it's sort of like, I don't want to say it's like Crosby and Malkin in Pittsburgh, but it's like Crosby and Malkin in Pittsburgh, where you're just kind of slotting in guys next to them, hoping something sticks. And I do wonder if that's the route that at least right now they're going to take, because you don't have a heck of a lot on the wings. You do have at least like NHL proven centers. Maybe that is the spot to go from. Yeah.
And again, like you just have so many different options as well, because you even have like Fraser Minton, who is coming off of, a really strong performance at the Prospects Challenge. Not much of a surprise, right? This is a guy that has played 20 plus games in the NHL, is considered one of the Bruins' top prospects. So not a surprise that he dominated there, but, he also gets some run with, a guy in Johnny Beecher and Fabian Lysell, two guys who maybe are on more of the roster bubble, but also I think kind of the same as Blumel, right? Like they're still, I think, going to get a lot of runway here to see if they can prove that they can stick in the NHL ranks. So yeah, I think you have a lot of options down the middle. It almost feels like you would, clear up another spot by giving an opportunity for a guy like Minton to, let's say, take the 3C spot. But if you're Marco Sturm, you're just trying to find some semblance of stability, right? Maybe it is the safer option for right now is, Zacha and Middlestat down the middle on two separate lines. And not trying to like balance out the depth because there's still so many question marks with that group, but maybe they're just trying to put guys in different spots right out of the gate here and see if you can have, two functioning lines instead of maybe putting all your chips in one spot with, again, Zacha and Middlestat together on a grouping. So there's a lot up in the air with this group. I don't think we're going to get any clarity in the next week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, but it does seem like right from the get-go that Sturm is trying to kind of leave no stone unturned when it comes to seeing what all this group has. Because beyond Geekie, Pastrnak, and Lindholm, how many sure bets are there in terms of we can expect some reasonable production out of that? And even that, that trio, we're expecting them to, carry on some of that success from last year. But what do? They outscored opponents 16-4 down the stretch. I don't know if that's realistic either, right? There's just so much up in the air with this group. So might as well cycle through what you have here and try to see where you can kind of find those sparks and those surprises. That's what Marco Sturm mentioned is every training game has one or two surprises. And I think the Bruins are trying to do their due diligence now to see who's ready to break out in one of those spots.
And it's tough because the lines from the last or from day one, Pasternak's not in them. So It's what would that when he's back? What do these lines in camp look like? And again, we get it; these are not necessarily going to be the lines for opening night, but they are right now, and that's what we have to go off of. We don't have much else to go off of. So, would Arvidsson slot in for Steves with Middlestat and Hustendinov? Would Arvidsson slot in for Hustendinov with Middlestat and Steves? Did I just repeat myself? I don't think I did. But
I don't think you did.
Would Arvidsson go on one side of Middlestat and bump one of those guys down? From the lines, and again, the Group A line was Hustendinov / Abate, Middlestat, and Steves. Does Arvidsson bump one of those guys? I would think he would with Pastrnak coming in because you would keep Geekie, Lindholm, and Pastrnak together. I am curious. Morgan Geekie made an interesting comment on Thursday when he was talking about sort of the pressure he felt last year. And is there a pressure to perform? And he kept saying no, I have nothing to lose. And it's what is there to lose?
That's my quote.
That's my quote. That's my quote. And I get it. I agree. It came out of nowhere last year. He even said, I don't think any of you guys had me with 30 goals, which hand up, didn't.
I did
All
not.
credit in the world, dude. Didn't have that. But I would push back on that. He's a vital contributor to this team. If he ends up with a 15-goal season, they're in bad shape. They're not in good shape. And this is not a knock on him. It's I think his mindset as a player has shifted, or it should, where it's dude, you're a top guy on this team. I mean, you had a reporter asking you about the Olympics for right or wrong, but asking about the Olympics. And I do think with him, and I imagine he's going through this where it's he used to be sort of the fill-in guy in the top six, and he was a reliable cog in the bottom six. Well, now he's a scorer in the top six, playing with David Pastrnak. And I do think there is an emphasis on him, given the money they gave him, which again wasn't insane, but still long-term money, and given his role on this team, that he's a big part of this. He does have to have, I'm not saying 33 goals, but they need him to have a very good season this year.
Yeah, you need what, at least 25, right?
Yes.
Just in terms of just keeping this group together, because to your point, there's just so much up in the air. We can look at Blumel and Zacha as a pair, right? We can look at Middlestat and Arvidsson maybe as a pair, and you can see maybe there's some upside there, right? It's the first day of camp, so every lineup combination, every pair looks intriguing. Then you get to end of October, mid-November, and you're like, what the hell is this, right? So you don't have a lot of assured production in this lineup right now beyond David Pastrnak. Now, you saw what Geekie did last year. Was it an outlier? I'm not sure if it was an outlier, just in terms of just the production that he had and the fact that I think the more he's going to be with David Pastrnak, it's a good strategy in terms of bumping your offensive numbers up, is having a guy like that set you up and especially just draw attention away from you out there on the ice. And I mean, we saw Geekie has a really good shot. So if he's able to kind of be the forgotten guy on that line in terms of where teams are throwing all their defensive coverage or who they're keeping tabs on, justifiably so, it being David Pastrnak, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 20-goal, 25-goal scorer. It's just, can he build off of what last year was? Was it really a blip, or is he like an actual 30-goal player, right? It's kind of like who's it? That Dorofeyev guy out in Vegas. Like that guy's a straight shooter on that group. And, is that a flash in the pan, or is he just also with a group that is catered to his skill set? I wouldn't be surprised if like Dorofeyev out where he's going to be skating with like Eichel and Mana. He's probably going to have a 30-goal season.
Yeah.
It's not out of the realm of possibility that Geekie can be a 30-goal player, especially if not only does the 5-on-5 production continue to carry over, but also as the Bruins kind of change around their power play and try to find other avenues beyond David Pastrnak to go through. And I think that falls on Steve Spott to kind of change things around. But a lot of Geekie's damage last year wasn't via the power play. Not a lot of guys produced on the power play last year. A lot of it was 5-on-5. So if you're able to get more from him in that area as well, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he could challenge for 30 goals again. But we'll see kind of how it all plays out.
Imagine he puts up like 40 goals. Imagine it's like, this is just him now. Like, that's the start
the Bruins will take it.
Yeah,
they'll take it.
I don't know if I'm betting on that, but yeah, he's an interesting case. And it is funny because, like, again, it's only been a year. And he even mentioned, you think back to the first 2 months of last season with Geekie, was awful, was scratched. Like, looked like, oh man,
getting Jim Montgomery asking like, oh, what does Geekie have to do to get in the lineup? He's like, I'll play better. I'm like, oh Jesus! All right.
Then things are not looking good. Then Sacco takes over, and Geekie just goes on a complete run. I want to get into sort of some differences in coaching, differences in something Nikita Zadorov said that I think really made us all kind of put our ears up, like, oh, excuse me, what was that? But first, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season over at PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Now, this weekend, you can get Patrick Mahomes for more than 0.5 passing yards, a 99% discount. I'm pretty sure Patrick Mahomes is going to throw more than 0.5 passing yards. I like that one, and you can
feel good about that.
I feel good about that. Plus, I do feel good about Josh Allen, more passing yards. I always like that, and that's Thursday night against the Dolphins. And then I always, again, Drake May against the Steelers this weekend. I do like the more passing yards there. So go over and check that out over on PrizePicks. It's simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. PrizePicks, also the best way to get action on sports in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. We know we have listeners from all around the country, so you're probably in a state that accepts PrizePicks. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So Nikita Zadorov said on Thursday that he kind of just slipped this in there, that last year, all the veterans were in one room during camp and all the young guys were in a room in a separate part, or in a separate locker room in camp. We all kind of went, huh? Really? And that can happen, I guess. Can happen. But that's not the sign of a terrific dressing room. It's not great. I don't like the sound of that. And Zadorov even said, I'd go on the ice a bit. Who are these people?
Who are you people?
Who are you? Different this year. There's just a Group A gets the main dressing room. Group B gets, as Marco Sturm put it, the shitty locker room. Group A owes Group B a beer, which I did enjoy Sturm swearing on day one of camp, which is pretty awesome.
Set the
tone. I think, again, there's a lot of things that are better than last year's camp. Your coach is here. He's not
checking his phone, and there's not like the Gateway Yacht on his screensaver.
Yeah, like, I don't know why I have the St. Louis Blues logo as my background on my phone. Your goalie's here, which is huge.
I just love Jason Tatum. That's what he said.
That's right. The St. Louis pizza.
Yeah.
But I think that's another example of there were real flaws with last year's team, and I think there were real questions about leadership.
Yeah, and I think it's promising that it was, Marco Sturm mentioned that it was his call to do that in terms of, even though the established veterans all get the nice dressing room. It's if you're in Group A, you're in that room. If you're in Group B, you get the shitty one, right? But that's, you're still, that's the group you're assigned with. That's who are going to be your line mates and your teammates for at least the first week plus of camp, right? Before they start cutting things down. So it makes sense. And I think for Marco Sturm, right? I think it's also a sign of one, like just resetting the culture and all those things, which I think are important. And it again shows that last year just feels like a whole lot was off. And the fact that like that passed over either the coaching staff or like the veterans on the team of being like, hey, we need like the younger guys to help us out here, right? Like, how's it going to help us if they're already in the other room? They're in like the storage closet, getting ready for skate. We can't, shoot the crap with them there or just build that kind of chemistry, that rapport that you have to rely on over the span of a season. So I think it makes sense. And it's good to see for both, Sturm saying that over this call, but also like Nikita Zadorov mentioning that it's an important thing for this group, right? Because listen, like the biggest key, if this team is going to surprise a lot of people and be competitive, it's going to revolve around the big guns, right? It's going to revolve around David Pastrnak, McAvoy, the Lindholm, Zadorov, Swayman. We all know that. But in terms of the long-term success of this team, it's going to, a lot of what this season is going to be is giving these younger players an opportunity to try to stake their claim in the NHL and seeing if any of these younger players are going to be part of the long-term solution, right? Like this isn't, the Bruins aren't putting all their chips, in place for this one season that we all are expecting to be kind of a bridge development year. It's about giving guys like Fraser Minton and Matt Poitras the opportunity to take a spot down the middle. It's about seeing if a guy like Matej Blumel or Fabian Lysell or D'Angelo Mellis or someone else like that can stick at the NHL level. And I think, it's not saying that just because Matej Blumel is posted up with, Zadorov in the main locker room, that's changing the whole vibes, right? But it's something that like shouldn't be, a second thought, right? Of like, oh, you're in Group A, of course you're in this room, right? So I think it's encouraging to see. I think it's a sign of whether it's Sturm mentioning it today, Zadorov, preaching it as being something that's important. And even like looking back to captain's practice where Charlie McAvoy was mentioning that, they have to evolve and adjust the culture and the expectations, especially for younger players, that what was the case a few years ago maybe is going to work now. I think that's kind of what you want to see from a team that I think has to come to terms with the fact that you have to tweak some things, especially if you want younger talent to thrive at this level and on this team moving forward.
I was going to say, I think there's kind of been a generational shift, and it's happened over a long stretch of time where there was a time when guys like Chara and Bergeron came up and younger guys were the bitches of the team. Like that was what it was, and you couldn't talk to certain guys. And I think that's changed. I think people understand that to get the most out of younger players, they need to fit in. You need to bring them into a sort of like the family environment. And I do wonder, why was that the case last year? How did it, you alluded to it there. How did that get past Jim Montgomery? How did that get past Brad Marchand and the leadership crew, where it's like, no, this is good. We're fine with this, especially considering a guy like Brad Marchand came up with Zdeno Chara, or came up under Zdeno Chara, who was big on like, we do not use the word rookie. And I wonder how that slipped. How did that happen? Because that's anti them. I've never heard of them doing that. And maybe they've done it in past years and we just didn't know, but I haven't heard of that. Like that certainly seems out of the ordinary for them, especially with their culture. So I agree with McAvoy, and like, yeah, they need changes to their culture, especially coming off of last season and what it was last year. Something that doesn't need to be changed though. Bruins Rinkside on YouTube. Subscribe to Bruins Rinkside on YouTube. Turn on notifications. We have stuff coming all the time. Podcasts, breakdowns, scrums, interviews, all that good stuff. Sometimes we have live streams. Don't miss out. And if you just like listening to us, that is totally okay. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from: Apple, Spotify, Podbean. There's so many out there. And there's lots of great stuff at CLNS. Patriots Press Pass, Celtics All Access. They are all cooking. Everyone's at full systems go. So there's a lot of content coming your way. So the Zadorov thing was very interesting. Pastrnak, as we talked about, has not been here. Tendonitis in his knee, as Sturm said. And tendonitis isn't fun. Tendonitis doesn't just like go away. It kind of like lingers a little bit. So that's unsettling to hear. I'm not saying it's like the end of the world or anything. Not great. It would also be nice if Pastrnak was there the first couple days of camp. I know Sturm said he's been wanting to get on the ice, been dying to get on the ice, which like completely makes sense. Unfortunate. Hopefully it doesn't linger. I'm not a doctor. Just an unfortunate start for Pasternak's camp.
Yeah, it's just what you don't want to see, right? And again, like I'm not really hitting the alarm for DEFCON 1 yet, right? Because Pastrnak was even out there before practice started. He was there at like 9 a.m. I think it was the ever vigilant Steve Conroy of the Boston Herald got there at maybe like 4 in the morning. I don't know, but he was there
You saw us
way ahead
playing.
of yeah, he was there way ahead of
Poor guy.
way ahead of practice, and Pastrnak was out there skating, shooting, all that stuff. So I think they're just taking it easy with him. Again, a lot of these guys have bumps and bruises and lingering things that, you know, are worth kind of just keeping tabs on. So if this carries into next week, right, that's when you start getting concerned, because you just don't want any player, especially a guy that is as important as David Pastrnak is, to be hampered or sidelined to start the year, right? We saw last year where Elias Lindholm, I think it was the first day of camp, had a back injury and kind of set him back. And again, he missed like pretty much all of camp. And, you know, that's not ideal. You hope that's not the case for David Pastrnak. So something worth monitoring. This is also a guy that has played, 82 games the last 3 seasons running. So if all of a sudden we go into next week, especially like after the first preseason game on Sunday, Pasternak's still not out there, that's kind of concerning. But I'm going to wait till we get to that point before we start, you know, signaling the alarms as far as his availability or what he's been dealing with.
Yeah, passing judgment. Another thing Sweeney mentioned on Wednesday, no PTOs, which I'm not shocked at. They signed so many bottom 6 or even, you know, depth defensemen at free agency that I never saw the huge need for a PTO. Obviously some guys can come out of it, but I'm not shocked. Are you?
No, not at all. Again, I think as appealing as it is or intriguing to look at guys that were still out there, right? Like I know Grizzly went with Chicago. You got like Jack Roslovic, like especially I think maybe forwards, right? There's a lot of guys that you could bring in that could give you some upside and maybe a little bit more certainty. But if this is like the year for the Bruins to view it as a bridge season or a developmental season, and you finally have an opportunity where, again, like I think they're trying to be competitive. They're trying to right the ship. They're trying to reset the culture, all these things. But I think you also have to be realistic of like there's every year where you can go into camp and look at the tons of different combinations they have afforded to them and the opportunity and the runway afforded to these guys to see what you have. Might as well see now what you have in guys like Lysell or Minton or Patra or, you know, Blumel, and give those guys an opportunity as opposed to maybe get tempted by what a guy like Roslovic or someone else like that could afford to you, right? Like I think beyond the fact that the Bruins are trying to build things back up and their pipeline's in a better spot than it's been in years past, I think you also have to start, you know, figuring out or getting some definitive takes on the guys that have been here for a while, right? Like the Markulovs, the Lysells, like are they actually going to be part of the equation here, or is it time to move on and get ready for the next wave of guys, the Mintons, the Lashmelises, those types of guys? So not surprised by it. And again, I think it's encouraging that, you know, the Bruins, as geared as they've been towards like maximizing their windows the last couple of years. And it's been the case when you have guys like Bergeron and Krejci and Chara and all those players that now I think they're taking a step back and reevaluating what they have to do in terms of roster construction. And I think for them, it's getting back on track and being a tough route this year. But I think it's more looking at the big picture, right? Of how are we going to get this team, this roster, this core in a better spot to really reestablish themselves as a sustainable contender. And I think one of the steps to do that may not be pretty, maybe have a lot of growing pains, but it's seeing what you have with this group right now, as opposed to continue to look outside the organization first.
Yeah, and again, if you're getting a PTO up front, especially, that guy's probably a bottom 6 forward. Roslovic's maybe more of a middle 6, but still, you have enough in-house candidates for the middle 6. You have enough in-house candidates for the bottom 6. I don't see the need for a PTO, and I was glad that they didn't see the need either. Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, you can read my stuff over at the Globe and Boston.com. We'll have you covered every step of the way this Bruins training camp going into the regular season. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofski. Poke the Bear listeners. Have a great rest of your week.